If you read that, can you say amen? Man, he's a good God. He's a good God. He's a good God. Hey, listen, I don't know how many of you know this, but church is a participative event. That means you don't just come, but you actually stand by some people. And you get the chance to go, and this is the biggest risk you have. Hi, my name is. So why don't you turn around, high five a few people, greet them, let them know who you are.
Good morning.
So we're encouraging you, if you can, bring your Bibles, we'll mark it up. And we are in the book of Revelation. And today we get to talk about the church in Smyrna. It was 2006. I was in the Philippines in a place called Mindanao. And one of the leaders of our missions trip says, hey Al, there's a place that not many people want to go. We can't send the ladies there. It's a high-risk situation because of the jihadist activity. And they want one of us to come and preach there on a Sunday morning. Would you go? I said, yes, I'll go. And so you have to go with security and precautions, but we drive up in a jeepney. We leave the hotel, and it was about a 2.5-hour drive out in the most magnificent rainforest you've ever seen. But as you're going, you see the sashes and you see the markings that take place, and you know you're in Abu Sayyaf, which is the terrorist group that's there in the Philippines, and you know you're on their territory. So we're driving, and we get into this I don't know, just this very simple building structure in the rainforest. And this Filipino pastor comes out and says, are you Pastor Soto?
Oh,
and I said, yes. He said, thank you so much for coming. We didn't know if we were going to get one of you missionaries. It's always a blessing to get a missionary from America to come and speak to us. And we are so thrilled that you're here. He walks me into the building, and it's about an hour before service. And he begins to tell me, and I know there's a particular smell that's in the air. And it's kind of a smell that's hard to explain, of something that's burned and just a bad smell. And I said, what's that smell? He says, well, we've had fires. He says, Pastor, he says, you know that they call this village the place of death. I go, why do they call this village the place of death? He says, because we're right in the middle of, you are a Christian pastor. He says, this is not a safe place to be. He says, the jihadists, they burn houses, they kill people, and they disappear, and they threaten. And he's telling me all these things, and my heart's in despair, and you can just smell that's in the air. And then all of a sudden, he just looks at me and says, Pastor, please, don't get down. He says, our God is faithful. Our God is faithful. He says, people are coming to Jesus. Wait till you see our people. They're going to love you, and you're going to love them. When the people started coming in this building, ladies and gentlemen, this building is half the size of what we're in. 2 stories. And he tells me, he says, we have anywhere between 800 and maybe 1,000 sometimes people come. Pastor, they come. Many are the jihadists. But he says they need to hear the good news. And when I sat there and I saw the people, now you have to understand, they're risking their life to come to church. Because you see, they're in jihadist neighborhood, and so if they know you're going to a Christian church, you just become a target. Do you realize that at the end of that service, it was a powerful service, not one person came up to me and prayed that the persecution would be lifted, prayed that their suffering would end. Matter of fact, the few of them said, hey, we're praying for you in America. Don't get lukewarm. Don't get lukewarm. We need American Christians to be strong. Amen. But not one of them apologized. They just lived with faith. Now, if you remember, I told this story, but I never told this section of the story. This was the story that it was a 17-year-old young lady on a little electric piano that was leading worship that Sunday. And it was one of the most powerful moments that I'd ever experienced in worship, in the sense of just the presence of God. I don't know what it is, but we're going to be talking and jumping into Smyrna. And Smyrna's reputation as one of these churches is it is suffering. There is a smell of death that is in the air of this church. They are a suffering church. And in the city of Smyrna, there are believers who are risking it all to serve the cause of Christ. Let me give you a few reasons why when we look at the city. First, there's intense emperor worship. This city was an intensely proud city known for its devotion to Roman deification. They really celebrated all the way since the time of Caligula. When Caligula was emperor of Rome and declared himself, because remember, it was not the common practice of a Roman emperor to declare themselves a deity until after they died. Caligula was the first one that introduced the whole notion, no, we're going to become a living God before the people. And so since that time, Domitian has done the same thing, and they have a heavy devotion. Today, where this is located, is in Izmir, Turkey. Today, it's a city of about 4 to 4.5 million people. And Smyrna was right where this city is. And at this time, there's about 60 to 100,000 people. Christianity had been established here in its infancy form. There was a group of Christians who were rooted, who began to just live for Christ, being persecuted and suffering every day. And during the reign of Emperor Domitian, it was systematic persecuting and murdering of Christians. It was not uncommon that Roman soldiers would come into the middle of a home that they thought were Christians and literally take a whole family, and they would disappear, never to be seen again. There was literally bones that they found in a section of the Mediterranean where many scholars believe these were where the bodies were discarded. They would just dump them over a cliff, and then they would literally just accumulate at the bottom of a sea. This is a church that only has encouragements and no criticisms. It's a faithful church. Its Hittite meaning was the city of the mother goddess. This was a city known for pagan worship of a female deity who was actually a very powerful demon. The Greek version of this city means the city of myrrh. Now, if you remember from the life of Jesus surrounding his birth, this was one of the herbs. It was gold, frankincense, and myrrh that was given to Jesus when he was a baby. It's a curious gift to give to a baby because this was a perfume that was used as embalming fluid for those who were dead. How do you like to live in a city that is known for death? That's the name of this city. It was fitting for the life of the people here because of what they suffered. And it's through all this, the sweet fragrance of Jesus Christ was smelled because of the devoted lives of the believers. Here's the second thing about this city: extreme economic persecution. To believe that Jesus was the first and last was to risk losing all possessions. It was the ability to conduct trade and eventually the loss of life. Many scholars believe that when we get later in the book of Revelations and we talk about buying and selling, and when there comes a time that will be controlled, that the city of Smyrna is the highlight of that. Because think about it, ladies and gentlemen, if you did not have the coin of the emperor with the 7 stars, remember we talked about that last week, how do you buy? How do you purchase? And for many Jews, to have that coin was to mean that somehow I was acceding to the deity of the emperor. How would you do trade? Because you were ostracized. You couldn't do business in the community if you were a Christian. And people suffered with this. And so, there was a young man that John trained. And it's an interesting history with this city. His name was Polycarp. And Polycarp, John trained Polycarp and sent Polycarp to the city of ancient Smyrna. And Polycarp became the lead pastor or the bishop of this city. Now, he was arrested, He was falsely tried, and because he would not worship the Roman Emperor Domitian to declare him Lord, and that he literally was put to death. Can you imagine? You're a leader of a church, and they take you, and Polycarp literally refused to bend a knee. There were some people who came to Polycarp, some of his own leaders, and said, just say it with your lips. And you know, we understand that you really don't believe this, but Polycarp said, no, I'm going to take a stand for who Jesus Christ is. I will not compromise. So, Polycarp, he was the man who was taken captive. And the reason why I say this about this city, because this is literally what they said. The proconsul, when Polycarp went before him, he said this to Polycarp: all you need to do for me to let you be set free is to curse your God, and I will let you go. Here was Polycarp's response: for 86 years I have served him. He has never done me wrong. How then can I blaspheme my king who has saved me? The proconsul again looked for a way out because they didn't want to put this old man to death. But Polycarp's reply was this: if you imagine for a moment that I would do that, then I think you pretend that you don't know who I am. Hear it plainly. I am a Christian.
Wow.
The proconsul could do no else, and they put Polycarp to the wild beasts, where he died. You need to know something. Why is that story even significant today? If you traveled to Turkey and you were to go to this town, this is the reason why there are sections in Turkey where there is favor, even amongst those that are not Christian, because the life of Polycarp and his courage to stand for God has literally through history echoed to the point that some people have associated Christians with the stand of Polycarp and would still say, you're a Christian, and if you're like Polycarp, you're for real. You're for real. That's what his life stood for. Listen, we live in America, and we live in Placerville, and we're not really very poor. Some of us may be economically challenged, but if you live in California, you really don't know poverty. This was a place of poverty. This place was a place in which Christians, it meant something and it cost you. There is no way that a prosperity gospel would succeed here. There's no way that you could sit here and go, well, Jesus just wants me to be wealthy and that's the sign of blessing. Oh, no. Oh, no. Those are all American forms of theology that cater to a consumer population. That would not take place in Smyrna. In Smyrna, to live for Jesus costs you. Now I want to pause there. And you may go, wow, Pastor Al, please just let up. Don't get too passionate and too hard-hitting. Remember, it's 21st century. We live in Placerville. In a few moments, I'm going to go to In-N-Out Burger, and life is going to be good. And the lady at the counter isn't going to ask when I order my double-double, hey, are you a Christian? Oh, we're not going to serve you. Ladies and gentlemen, our culture is like the frog in the kettle. The moment, years ago, there was a leader. There was a leader who made this statement. He said, the moment they can laugh at you, they'll persecute you. Hollywood has made a joke of Christianity. Unfortunately, some segments of Christianity have given them the ammunition to do so. But they've made a joke of us. The Christian is always the bumbling individual who's hypercritical, who's socially awkward, who really doesn't get along with other people. And we live in a culture that you might not think this, but it's going to cost you. It is costing you. I'm not talking about a cultural Christianity where you go to church and you punch the clock and you go, I'm a Christian. I'm talking about the kind of Christianity when you're on the job and their fellow employees are doing something that's wrong, and you have to say, I'm not going to do that. Why? And you say, because I'm a follower of Christ. I won't do that. You know, I'm coaching football. Recently, one of the parents came up to me and they said, you know, we really appreciate you. They said, we like the fact that you don't cuss. Our kids say you don't cuss. And that's a really good thing. I said, that's great. You must do that because you were just raised right. And I had a moment there kind of going, and I said, and I went back and I said, ma'am, let me tell you why I don't cuss. Because it doesn't honor he who created me. Oh, are you a churchgoer? I said, yeah, I'm a Christian. She just goes, oh, that's really good. I didn't do that because I wanted to be known as a... Hey, listen, what I want them to know is there's nothing good in me. I'm really not that good. Matter of fact, you came and you're saying, I'm going to go to this church because this pastor must be just a great guy. You missed it. You see, I don't like you because you're a great person. Because you're not. Matter of fact, let me go a little step further. The Bible says, my righteousness is like filthy rags. I don't know why in church we always try to make our righteousness better than what it is. That's not grace. See, to be a part of grace, you have to understand where you really are at. And so when people kind of go, man, you know, it's really good that you got Jesus. It's probably helped you with your marriage, and it's probably helped you raise your kids. Boy, that's really good because we need really good morals. No, I need Jesus to keep me sane. I need Jesus so that I can be the person that God wants me to be. There is nothing good in me that's good enough. Now you all got quiet on me. You're probably all staring at me going, man, that's good theology for you, Al. No, it's for you too. Because here's the truth of the matter. Even in your private moments, when you're most irritated, and you're using Hebrew and Greek words because you're angry, and no one's around, and you're saying things about people, places, and things that aren't good, Jesus hears all that, and He still loves you and me. And cultural Christianity always wants to deal with the outside of the cup behavior, and it never wants to deal with what's inside of the heart. And this is the reason why I'm a little concerned about American Christianity. I'm a little bit concerned because we got it really good, but tides are changing. Now, I don't know that where that's all going to lead. I just know that you can go out and most people don't go to church. They say we're in a post-Christian culture. Now, some people go, oh, that's really bad. The sky's falling. You know what I say? Bring it on. Because the light always shines brighter when the darkness is at its darkest. I got a few amens on that. Some people are going, oh, no. Listen, you've got to understand this. This isn't Christianity by convenience. Smyrna's not living like that. Christianity's never been about convenience. Christianity has never been, Jesus, if you could just come down to my level and do what I want you to do. He's the sovereign God. I want you to catch this, because John does it on purpose. He's the first and last. He's the first and last. Now I want you to get a little bit more down to our human level. How many of you got so frustrated with God that you have one of those talks? You know what I'm talking about? Those talks with God. God! What are you doing?
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Oh, yeah.
What's up? I've been a good person. Okay, I mess up, but I'm not an axe murderer. I'm not someone that's really bad. Why are you doing this to me? There are people in this church that if you were to talk to them, they have wave after wave of challenging seasons. And you know, a platitude doesn't work. You just don't go up there and go, well, you know what? It's all going to get better someday. No. The only thing you know is God is faithful. God is faithful. My righteousness isn't good enough. My righteousness, matter of fact, people who hold their righteousness in great kind of, put it in a place of honor in their lives, guess what happens? They compromise. Because there is something to the power of weakness that says, it's all about you, Jesus. It's all about you. And by the way, Christianity is not just something that beats us up like we're not worth anything. No, the starting point is we're so valuable that He's given the best of who He is to us. Because He created us. I want you to know that in our culture, the greatest message of Christianity is this. It really is all about Jesus. It's really all about Jesus. One of my sons, they came up to me a while back and they go, man, you and Mom have been married a long time. Wow, you know how your kids do it. You're so old, Dad. Tell me about the Triceratops. You know? And my son John, he gives me a call. He's down in Southern California. And he goes, Dad, and he's talking about my sobriety and my marriage, because he showed up at a place where I was sharing my story down in Southern California. And it was the first time he heard all the details of it. And he was in tears. And at the end of the meeting, he came up to me and he said, Dad, thank you. Thank you. Well, he calls me up afterwards. He says, Dad, how did you do it? I said, listen, son, there's no secret. You lean into Jesus. It's the power of Jesus. If I'm going to love your mom the way that she needs to be loved, it's because I lean into Christ. It's His capacity to love. My love is limited. My love wants to be conditional. But when I'm in His agape, when His love expands my perspective, even in the most difficult of times, and we had some difficult times. Oh man, we had some difficult times. You should see the first apartment I moved her into. Oh my. It was tough. But those were some good times. You want to know why? Because we leaned into Jesus. Jesus becomes the glue. Jesus becomes the power. And when you do that, He begins to transform you. That's Smyrna. You see, you don't get up one day and go, I'm going to take a stand for Jesus. I'm going to take a stand for Jesus today. I know something's going to come at me. It is a character that has been shaped through the fires of testing that comes to the place that says, I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to take a stand for Christ. So why should this matter to me? Real quickly, have you ever experienced injustice? These people, they had extreme injustice. They faced all kinds of injustice, economic, relational, professional, religious. There was injustice at every level. Have you ever been controlled by fear? You see, they had to learn how to surrender to God to take away their fear. And have you ever been in a dark season that just refuses to end? See, in Revelation 2, 8 through 11, there's success, struggles, and there's a prescription in Smyrna. Let's read the passage. Look what it says. To the angel of the church of Smyrna write, these are the words of Him who are the first and last, who died and came to life again. I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. I know about the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. I tell you, the devil will be put some of you in prison to test you, and you will suffer persecution for 10 days. Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you life as your victor's crown. Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The one who is victorious will not be hurt at all by the second death. Wow. They will not be hurt. How many of you, when you were a child, had something so valuable it really hurt when you had to take it away? You remember those times? My oldest boy had a blanket that was made for him. He called it his bee. He had his blanket everywhere he went. When he was getting about 5 years old, this ragged, tagged, kind of dirty blanket, Valerie tried to maintain it. We kind of said, man, you know what, I wonder if he's going to break away from his bee. And so I don't know what happened to it. It kind of disappeared. He fell apart one day. He just says, where's my bee? Where's my bee? And it was a tough thing. And I can remember how traumatic it was for him. He cried and wept. I need my bee. I want my bee. There are things in our life that Smyrna had to live with. Things that we default to. That we find our security in. That God finally in this church was saying, I'm going to test you. And none of those things are going to work for you. But guess what? As you persevere, as you get through those things, I'm going to develop a character in you, and you are going to receive the crown of life. So here's the first thing. We get a definition of success. To possess durable wealth. Look at verse 9. I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. I know the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. God is highly empathetic to our brokenness, afflictions to suffer ongoing sicknesses is what brokenness is. All of the afflictions that they had to suffer, of their lack, their poverty, to be without fundamental needs, and cruelty, slander, to have one's reputation falsely attacked. And here's the big idea behind this, ladies and gentlemen. Will the wealth we are accumulating last? Jesus knows what real wealth is about. Now I want to pause there for a moment because I want to be real clear with something. Having things aren't evil. Having things aren't evil. That's not the message of the scripture. What he's talking about is they no longer found their security in the stuff that they thought they should have. And he says, listen, I'm going to let you know what real wealth is. Real wealth is your life mattering on somebody else's life. It's when your life really counts and really matters. That's the success of wealth. Some of you who are young couples today, you're in a great season of your life. You know what I tell young couples? Man, remember everything. It goes fast. Even all the crazy stuff that goes on. You miss those times. You miss those trips when you're all in a van like we were, and we'd have all the boys in there, and they'd have to put up with me singing Beach Boys. Now all of them like the Beach Boys to this day because we take long trips, and I'd be singing Help Me Rhonda. My son goes, you brainwashed us, Dad. You brainwashed us with your music. Now I like your music. Thank you, Jesus. But all those times. And then you go through seasons where they're difficult. And then you go through seasons, and as you age, your whole notion of success changes. It really does. Now, maybe for some it doesn't. But when you live all the battles and you go through things, you begin to ask the critical questions, what really matters? And what really matters, and I think this is the people of Smyrna, and this is what Jesus is saying to them when he's saying, you're the first and the last, and I'm going to give you a sense of life and wealth, is they knew that everything they were doing, even all the persecution, was mattering for someone else. They were taking a stand for a region and for a city so that the power, the life, love, and power of Jesus Christ could arise there. Do you know what the greatest form of evangelism is? Authentic Christian families that live life. I'm not talking about the phony kind. You know what I mean? Not the ones that everything's just great. And they're like this. And everything's just wonderful. Jesus, that's weird. That's just flat out weird. I'm talking about people who deal with challenges of their jobs, of their economics. Maybe they have relational challenges. Maybe there's family difficulties. And through it all, they simply say, Jesus, we're leaning into you. We're trusting into you. We're believing, God, that you would be the sufficient one in our relationship. You might want to write this down. Skills without the character of Jesus doesn't impact anyone. The character of Jesus was skilled. And you know the reason why I'm saying that? Because in the church, we have almost educated people beyond their ability to obey Christ. We've given them information. We've given you all this stuff. And the church has become... But see, what I'm not talking about is an education. I'm not talking about something that's just knowledge-based. It's how do I live this when the heat is on? And you see, the character of a person isn't seen when everything is good. It's seen when your back's against the wall and it seems like all hell is breaking loose. Then you take a stand. Then you take a stand. It's that kind of character that speaks. And that was Smyrna. They couldn't kill it. They couldn't drive it into the sea. Real success was give your life away. Give your life away. Even with all the struggles, even with all the tribulation, the poverty, and the slander, these believers took a stand to trust Christ and to lean into His grace. And as a result, in all of church history, it was this region, when North Africa and the rest of the world was regressing from the Christian message, it thrived here. It thrived here because a company of people said, we're going to take a stand. I think the tool and the tactic that Satan uses against us, write this down, is hurt and offense. I think the bait of Satan is not the overt persecution that oftentimes comes from without, but it comes from within. It's when we've been offended or we've gone through a season of hurt, even in the church. And we've been hurt. And all of a sudden, this is what we do. We begin to regress ourselves. And then if we don't lean into Jesus, we give a whole new definition of what's going on. Oh, all those people, I'm never going to trust again. I'm not going to risk it again. I'm not going to step out and trust church folk again. Because I've been hurt. It happens in relationships. It happens on jobs. People who have had a hurt occupationally in their profession. And all of a sudden you say, why aren't you doing that again? We had a lady in our church in Lincoln who very bright lady, and she would cry. One day she came in and she says, Pastor Al, you know what I was meant to be? A school teacher. But I had this painful situation take place and I didn't feel like I was backed by a principal. And I said, why are you allowing that one issue to control your life? What are you telling me? I'm saying that if you feel like you need to teach, teach. But don't allow one instant in your life to hold you captive. You know what she did? She applied for a job that was part-time. And I didn't know this. She didn't tell me. She applied for a job, and then one Sunday she shows up, and she goes, I got something to tell you. I go, what it is? She says, well, you'll have to wait till after service. I go, well, nah. She comes up after service, and she has tears in her eyes. She says, I've been offered, Pastor Al, she said, I got a part-time teaching job. They're going to hire me. I'm going to be a full-time teacher to 5th graders again. Why? That would have never happened. I didn't do anything for her other than to encourage her. Why are you allowing that to trap you? You see, the bait of Satan isn't what he does out there. Sometimes there's a persecution far worse from the outside. It's what comes from within. And then all of a sudden we begin to give definitions to things that aren't real and keep us stuck. And we no longer dream those dreams that Jesus has for us because we are defaulting to an offense. We no longer give ourselves to our brothers and sisters in Christ in service and give the best of who we are because I've been offended and I've been hurt. And that's the bait of Satan. And the bait of Satan is always to entrap us and to ensnare us. And in Smyrna, when the heat was on, I'm sure there could have been a lot of that. But you see, he goes, no, you didn't do that. You didn't withdraw. See, you took a stand. And here's the big idea. Hard seasons will always come around, and they'll always come to an end. And can I say this? Wherever your greatest challenge is, will be your greatest breakthrough. It always seems like that. It'll be your greatest breakthrough. And then here's the third point. Prescription to redefine faithfulness. Look what he says in verse 10. Be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you the crown of life. I was going to show you a picture this morning of my wife and I when we were first born. Or not first born, but first married.
That'd be interesting.
That'd be interesting. No, when we were first married. And we have this picture, and I kind of look like Wayne Newton because I had hair back then. And I look at this picture, and I have it in my desk. And the reason why I'm so fascinated by this picture is I always look at it, and I can remember the day. Don't you have pictures like that where you can look at it, and you just remember the moment, and you remember the day? And boy, she was a beautiful bride. My wife was a beautiful. I just cried through our whole ceremony. I bawled and bawled. And then I had to sing to her, and I sang a stylistic song to her, and she sang with me.
Oh, how neat.
It was a powerful thing. But when she came down, and it's a picture right after our ceremony, and we're together. And I look at that picture, you know what goes through my mind? That couple didn't know everything in life that was going to throw at them. For better or for worse. You know all that stuff we say? You know that moment when you came to Jesus and all you knew was, man, Jesus is in my heart. He's transformed me. He changed me. And it's all good. And then all of a sudden you showed up and someone said something that just hurt your feelings. And then all of a sudden you leave and you go, man, they got Jesus in that church and Satan too. Huh?
Yeah.
Because we have a way of demonizing things. Here's the point I'm trying to say, folks. There are seasons. There are going to be tough seasons that come our way. There are going to be tough seasons that we face. And you go, well, I know this already. That's a simple point. Really? Do we really know it? Do we really understand that the rhythms of grace are not felt when we're at the top of a mountain, but grace is really experienced when we're at the lowest valley? And that's where Jesus meets us. My grandson, he's blessed me with quite a few moments. He says, Papa, can I ask you a question? Yeah, Josiah. Will you love me forever? I'll love you forever. Will you love me every day? I'll love you every day. And then this is the good one. Will you love me even when I'm bad? I'll love you even when you're bad. By the way, Jesus already settled that with us. You know where he settled that? The cross.
Yeah.
The cross. Some of us live a grace-guilt life cycle because we constantly battle. If I have these thoughts, if I have these feelings, Jesus, do you really love me? Am I really worthy enough? And the bottom line is, yes, you are. Let me finish with this quick story. George Bolt worked faithfully for years in the front desk of a small hotel. One day, an elderly couple came into the lobby and asked for a place to stay. Every room in the hotel and every hotel in the town was occupied. Realizing that the elderly couple had nowhere to sleep, Bolt offered them his own room. And although they were reluctant to accept his offer, they eventually did so because George insisted. The next morning when the couple was checking out, the elderly man said to George, "You're the kind of man who should be managing the best hotel in the country. Someday I'm going to build that hotel and let you manage it." Several years later, Bolt gone through some difficult times in his life. Been on some jobs where his integrity was challenged. In one situation, there was actually people who were stealing from the employer, and he took a stand, and he was the one that was let go for taking a stand. This man had gone on some hard times, but he said this, you know what? I can't let go of my integrity. My character matters too much. And so he settled in his mind that what was more valuable for him was his integrity than having the job that he aspired to one day. This was this man. When Bolt arrived in New York, he received a letter in the mail. And it had a round trip, when he moved to Chicago, he received a letter in the mail with a round trip ticket with a note from a man who he finally remembered who it was. It was this man who years before he helped get a room. And the man invited George to visit him in New York City. When Bolt arrived in New York, the gentleman took him to a downtown corner where a huge building stood. George, this is the hotel I built for you to manage. Bolt stared in amazement at the glorious structure. The hotel was the Waldorf Astoria. The elderly man was William Waldorf Astor, one of the wealthiest men in the country. Bolt's faithfulness and his character and his integrity and his faith was seen in this man, and years later he remembered the moment. And he said, I want you to be the man that runs my hotel. The success of this hotel was because of George Bolt, who helped an elderly couple one night have a place, and he served them well. There will be a judgment day. God will examine how well we managed our lives. There will be a moment we stand before Jesus. But that's not what just we need to be concerned with. Because you see, for us as believers, our judgment isn't a judgment unto eternal death. Our judgment is rewards. And it's the question of, did you really take everything that you have and maximize it to its full potential? You may think as a mother you're a failure. You might be a young mom here today and you're struggling and you're battling through some life situations. And maybe life seems overwhelming. And you may go, it doesn't really matter. But I want you to know your love, your integrity, and your courage years later from now will count in the lives of your kids. And as you take a stand, it is the passionate hope that Proverbs 31 really will be the postscript of your life, which would be that they will rise up and call you blessed. You might be a man here, and maybe you've struggled through life. Maybe you didn't have a father. Maybe you felt abandoned and neglected. Maybe there was things in life that just didn't seem fair. But you lean in. Maybe in the business way you have failure and struggle. Maybe you haven't been successful in the way that you thought you'd been. But God sees. God sees the moments you didn't compromise. God sees the way that you've been faithful. God sees the way that you've lived your lives. And I'm here to tell you there is a crown of something that God has for His people who take a stand. And as a man, your life will matter. It will be reproduced in lives that you have never imagined will be seen. You might be an older couple here today. Maybe you're in retirement. Maybe your life and your health is frail. And maybe you've come to the place of human frailty where you're kind of going to yourself, maybe I don't have much more. Maybe I don't have anything to give. Maybe I need to just put it on cruise control and stop telling myself that my life really matters. Maybe you feel lonely and you're alone. But I want you to know that in this community, in the life of this place, your life matters, and Jesus sees everything. He who's the beginning and the end, He who's the first and the last, has a crown of life, and it matters that generations to come, there will be blessing that will be given because of the stand you took. Amen. Faithfulness matters. Our faithfulness counts. And for some of you, let me say this. Maybe you've been a part of Bayside for 20 some odd years. We have some of those folks. And you've been through every season and every wave, and you've seen all the ups and all the downs and how things have gone sideways. But because of your faithfulness, there will be a season that lives will be touched, lives will be blessed because of people who lived their life unselfishly, even when it was easier to be selfish.
Amen.
So like George Bolton, here's what I have to say. Does Smyrna have a message for us today? Yes, he does. And all I can tell you is what the writer in the Old Testament says. Some people will trust in chariots, some people will trust in horses. But I will trust in the Lord God Almighty.
Amen.
We do that. You do that. I'm not saying you're going to become a millionaire. I'm not saying that tomorrow you'll wake up and someone's going to have a BMW in the driveway of your car, because quite frankly, whatever. I will tell you this. You'll have grandkids that even though they might have challenges, they'll go, but wait a second. I remember a grandparent and a grandma and a grandmother who loved Jesus Christ and lived it and loved us, and I'm going to honor them. You're going to have children. You'll have relationships, and you'll have people that said, thank you for your life because it mattered. I don't know about you. I want to be rich that way. God bless you, Bayside, as Neil comes and closes us in prayer.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks, praise, and glory because of your great love towards us. Lord, like the church in Smyrna, fire doesn't create gold. It doesn't create silver. It just reveals what is there. So during the times of our life, Lord, when we're experiencing difficulty and stress, and we're in the crucible where it feels like we're getting pounded, it feels like we're getting crushed, we pray, Lord, that our life would be a sweet fragrance to you, that you would be honored by what you're doing in our lives, that we would be honorable to you, that we would be able to trust in you and lean into you during those times of stress and strain. Your name would be a treasure on our lips, and fire on our tongue. Thank you, Lord, for the love and grace and mercy that you show us, and all the things that we succeed in, all the things that we don't. You would continue to be honored by our life and how we live it before you. That you would continue to give us wisdom and strength and courage to stand in this day, in this age, in this time. Lord, thank you for bringing all of us here together. Lord, thank you for the word. Thank you for your sacrifice. May it be powerful enough to take us where you want us to be able to go.